Napheesa Collier just got absolutely destroyed on live television, and the reason why will blow your mind. While she is sitting there claiming that the WNBA should learn from her and the new Unrivaled league, the numbers tell a completely different story. Caitlin Clark brought in record-breaking viewership and attendance that the WNBA had never seen before, while Unrivaled plays in a gym with barely a couple of hundred fans. And here is the twist. Collier is not just criticizing the WNBA out of principle. She is the co-founder of that very same league, Unrivaled. And if the WNBA crumbles, her business stands to make millions. Talk about a conflict of interest that is exposing what looks like sabotage. Do you think Collier is delusional? Let us know in the comments below. The interview started innocently enough, but within minutes, Collier was making claims that left everyone watching completely stunned. She sat across from the host with a confident expression, explaining how the WNBA needed to take notes from Unrivaled's approach to player treatment and league operations. The audacity was incredible. Here is someone whose league operates out of a single gym in Miami, telling the established professional women's basketball league how to run their business. When the host brought up attendance and viewership numbers, that is when things got really uncomfortable. Collier started stumbling over her words as she tried to explain why Unrivaled games draw maybe 300 fans, while Caitlin Clark's Fever games were packing arenas with 15,000 screaming fans. She kept talking about building something sustainable and focusing on the player experience, but could not answer the simple question of why her model was better when nobody was actually watching. The host pressed harder, asking about television ratings. Clark's playoff games against Connecticut pulled in over 2 million viewers on ESPN. Her rookie and sophomore season games consistently broke WNBA viewership records week after week. Meanwhile, Unrivaled streams to maybe a few thousand people on social media platforms. Collier's face started getting red as she scrambled to explain how quality mattered more than quantity, but her arguments fell completely flat. Then came the most cringe moment of the entire interview. Collier actually tried to claim that veteran players like herself had laid the groundwork for the WNBA's recent popularity surge. She talked about how the league's foundation was built by established stars, not newcomers. The host immediately called her out on this ridiculous take. Clark brought mainstream sports attention to women's basketball that veterans had never achieved in 20-plus years of trying. The interviewer kept digging deeper into Collier's obvious conflict of interest. How can someone serve as vice president of the WNBA Players Union while simultaneously owning a competing league? Collier started deflecting, talking about player advocacy and better working conditions, but never addressed the core question about divided loyalties. She kept saying she wanted what is best for women's basketball, but could not explain how undermining the WNBA helped achieve that goal. By the end of the segment, Collier looked completely defeated. She could not justify why anyone should trust business advice from someone whose venture barely registers on the sports landscape. The host pointed out that Clark's impact was measurable and undeniable. Jersey sales, ticket sales, television ratings, and social media engagement all skyrocketed during her first 2 seasons. Collier had no response except more vague talking points about respecting the game's history. The whole disaster exposed what fans had suspected all along. This is not about improving conditions for players or growing women's basketball. Collier's criticism of the WNBA serves one primary purpose: promoting her own competing business venture. Every negative comment she makes about league leadership helps position Unrivaled as the superior alternative, even though the numbers prove otherwise. What makes this whole situation even more outrageous is the massive conflict of interest that Collier has been hiding in plain sight. She holds the position of vice president of the WNBA Players Union, which means she is supposed to advocate for every single player in the league. At the same time, she is running Unrivaled as a direct competitor to the WNBA. You cannot serve two masters when those masters are fighting each other for the same players, the same sponsors, and the same fans. When Collier sits down at the bargaining table to negotiate the collective bargaining agreement, she is supposed to represent what is best for WNBA players. But every concession she forces the league to make weakens the WNBA financially and makes her own venture look more attractive by comparison. She has been pushing for that massive $10.5 million salary cap increase that could completely destabilize the league's business model. The WNBA has already extended the collective bargaining agreement negotiations 3 separate times because these demands are so unrealistic. The math does not work in Collier's favor, and she knows it. The WNBA generates revenue through television contracts, ticket sales, and sponsorship deals. If player salaries eat up too much of that revenue, the league becomes unsustainable. Teams start losing money, investors pull out, and the whole thing collapses. But here is the twisted part. If the WNBA fails, those displaced players have nowhere else to go except Unrivaled. Collier has been systematically attacking Commissioner Cathy Engelbert in public forums and interviews. She questions Engelbert's leadership, criticizes league decisions, and undermines confidence in the WNBA's direction. She frames these attacks as concern for player welfare, but they serve a much more sinister purpose. Every time someone reads about drama and dysfunction in the WNBA, Unrivaled looks like a stable alternative. The strategy is actually pretty clever from a business perspective. Collier does not need to make Unrivaled successful on its own merits. She just needs to make the WNBA look dysfunctional and unstable. When players get frustrated with union negotiations, salary disputes, and leadership conflicts, they will start considering other options. Unrivaled becomes the escape route that Collier has been carefully constructing. This explains why she has been so vocal about league problems during what should have been a celebration period. Caitlin Clark brought unprecedented attention and growth to women's basketball. Television ratings, attendance, and merchandise sales all reached historic levels. Instead of capitalizing on this momentum, Collier chose to create chaos and negativity around the league's future. The most damaging part is how she has poisoned the well for future negotiations. Commissioner Engelbert has already called out Collier publicly for misrepresenting private conversations and spreading false information. The relationship between league leadership and the players' union has deteriorated to the point where both sides are calling each other liars in press conferences. This toxic environment serves nobody except Collier, who benefits when the WNBA looks like a disaster from the outside. The sheer audacity of what Collier is trying to pull off reaches peak levels when she attempts to rewrite history about who actually saved the WNBA. Caitlin Clark did not just break a few records here and there. She completely transformed what it meant to be a women's basketball fan in America. Her Iowa games during March Madness drew bigger audiences than most men's college basketball games. When she was drafted to Indiana, suddenly everyone wanted Fever tickets. Clark's television numbers in her first 2 seasons tell the real story. Games featuring the Fever averaged over 1 million viewers on ESPN and ION. The playoff series against Connecticut pulled in 2.5 million people watching on television. Those are not just WNBA records. Those are numbers that rival major men's sports programming. Before Clark arrived, most WNBA games struggled to reach 500,000 viewers on their best nights. But Collier keeps pushing this ridiculous narrative that veteran players like herself deserve credit for building the foundation. She talks about how the league needed established stars to create the platform for newcomers to succeed. The problem with this theory is that those established stars had over 20 years to build mainstream popularity, and they never came close to what Clark accomplished in her first season. Arena attendance tells an even more dramatic story. The Fever went from playing in front of half-empty venues to selling out every single home game. Road games became events where opposing teams had to move to larger arenas just to accommodate the demand for Clark tickets. Fans were showing up wearing Clark jerseys in cities she had never played in before. Collier sees all this massive popularity and attention, and instead of celebrating what it means for women's basketball, she is trying to figure out how to redirect those fans toward Unrivaled. She has been making calculated statements about how the WNBA does not appreciate its players properly. She questions whether the league truly supports player development and growth. The timing of these attacks reveals everything you need to know about Collier's true motivations. Right when the WNBA should be celebrating its biggest growth period ever, she is creating controversy and drama. She is telling reporters that the league has terrible leadership. She is criticizing Commissioner Engelbert during what should be victory laps for everyone involved in women's basketball. Every negative headline about WNBA dysfunction serves Collier's business interests perfectly. When casual fans who discovered women's basketball through Clark start reading about union disputes and leadership conflicts, some of them will lose interest entirely. Others might start looking for alternatives to follow their favorite players. That is exactly where Unrivaled wants to position itself in the marketplace. Clark brought millions of new eyeballs to women's basketball who had never watched a WNBA game before. She created a cultural moment that transcended sports and became a mainstream phenomenon. Social media was buzzing about her passes and three-pointers. Kids started wearing her jersey to school. Parents bought tickets to games they had never considered attending before. Instead of protecting this incredible momentum, Collier chose to attack the very league that made her career possible. She appears willing to sacrifice the biggest breakthrough in WNBA history just to give her startup venture a competitive advantage. The fan reaction has been absolutely explosive across every social media platform you can think of. Twitter threads are going viral with thousands of people calling out Collier's blatant conflict of interest. Fans are posting side-by-side comparisons of Clark's packed arenas versus Unrivaled's empty gym photos. The comment sections on basketball forums are brutal, with longtime WNBA supporters expressing complete disgust at what they are watching unfold. Commissioner Cathy Engelbert reached her breaking point and decided to fight back publicly. She directly contradicted Napheesa Collier's account of their private negotiations, and she accused Collier of lying about what happened behind closed doors. Engelbert said the union was spreading false information and creating unnecessary drama during what should be a celebration period for the league. The gloves came off completely when Engelbert questioned whether Collier could ethically represent WNBA players while running a competing business. The war of words between league leadership and union officials is getting nastier every week. Press conferences have turned into accusation sessions, with both sides calling each other dishonest and manipulative. Union representatives fired back at Engelbert by questioning her leadership and commitment to player welfare. Meanwhile, the media ate up every confrontational quote and turned each exchange into headline news. Players such as Sophie Cunningham find themselves stuck in an impossible position. They genuinely want better working conditions and higher salaries for everyone in the league. But supporting the union's demands means backing Collier's aggressive tactics and potentially destructive negotiation strategy. Cunningham and other players must choose between loyalty to their union representative and protecting the league that is finally gaining mainstream popularity. The nuclear option looming over everything is a potential lockout that could wipe out the entire 2026 season. All those new fans who discovered women's basketball through Caitlin Clark could see their favorite sport disappear for months or longer. The Fever are building something special with Clark running the offense, Aaliyah Boston dominating inside, Kelsey Mitchell providing veteran leadership, and Lexi Hull emerging as a defensive star. A work stoppage would shatter that momentum and force fans to find other entertainment options. Napheesa Collier does not lose sleep over destroying the 2026 season because she has unrivaled games to promote instead. While WNBA players sit at home without paychecks, her league continues operating and attracting attention as the only professional women's basketball option available. The lockout scenario actually benefits her business model by eliminating the competition entirely. Those millions of Caitlin Clark converts who bought their first WNBA tickets are watching this union drama unfold and questioning whether they want to invest emotionally in a league that might not exist next year. Parents who started taking their daughters to Fever games are reading about labor disputes and wondering if women's basketball is stable enough to follow long-term. The devastating irony cuts straight to the heart of what is happening here. Collier is actively working to sabotage the most successful period in WNBA history just to give her startup a better chance at survival. That disastrous live television interview revealed exactly what fans suspected all along. Collier is not fighting for player rights or league improvement. She is promoting her own business while sabotaging the competition. The WNBA just signed a massive $2.2 billion media rights deal and added expansion teams under Engelbert's leadership. Caitlin Clark brought unprecedented growth that veterans never achieved in decades of trying. The league cannot allow someone with divided loyalties to destroy this incredible momentum. Fans who love women's basketball need to support players and leaders who actually want the sport to succeed, not those willing to sacrifice everything for personal profit. Do you think Collier is delusional? Let us know in the comments. Like, subscribe, and turn on all notifications so you never miss out. Click the video on the screen and we will see you in the next one.